Hello to everybody who made it out. It's Beautiful Anonymous. 1 hour, one phone call, no names, no holds barred.
I'd rather go one-on-one. I think it'll be more fun, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me.
Hi everybody, it's Chris. If you are someone who's not into an intro, I get it. This week's intro does have last-minute instructions on how you can get the Beautiful Anonymous magazine if you want. But if you're not interested in that, it's all good. You're going to want to skip about 9.5 minutes ahead. That'll put you right at the beginning of the phone call. Thanks. Hi everybody, Chris Gethard here. Welcome to another episode of Beautiful Anonymous, the podcast where we explore the human condition one anonymous phone call at a time. I feel really lucky to be here, as always, bringing you a conversation that I really loved having. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. First, I have to just say a huge and massive thanks. People are very excited about Beautiful Anonymous, the magazine. I announced it on the show last week that it was printed up, sent out a little note to my email list, put it on social media that it's out here, and people have really responded to the degree where the people who run the company that our subscription content is housed at sent Andrea an email. They're like, hey, you guys got a nice bump in numbers this week. What the heck is going on? Turns out we should have put a magazine out months ago. It's getting people to sign up. We got, I think, something, as of this recording, close to 150 signups. Just to be clear, I got a lot of response, especially to the email I sent. I wasn't clear. If you're signed up, you're good to go. You don't need to sign up again. If you've been sitting here for a week going, wait, what? Nope. If you are a member of beautifulanonymous.com on any of the tiers, you should be good to go. We have not had an explosion of more than 2,000 people, at least as of Friday when I'm recording this. So it means if you're signed up, you should be getting a magazine. And you're going to get, we think, an email and some audio, both of those explaining how you can get us your current address so we can mail it on out. So just hang tight, check your email, check your spam, check your bonus content feeds, and you'll start to see the info you need on the best ways that you can go ahead and get a copy of that magazine, which now that I've held it in my hand, I'm so proud of it. I think it's really cool. A community came together, and now we got our own magazine. It's not a big deal. And remember, we had said you would need to be signed up by today, but just in case anybody's falling behind on episodes, I'll just go ahead and say this. This episode is coming out on March 18th. That's a Tuesday. We're going to extend signups until 11:59 p.m. tonight, March 18th. So if you feel like you missed the boat on the magazine, the way you get it is you sign up for one of the tiers at beautifulanonymous.com, and color copies go to the people at the top tiers, black and white copies thereafter, based on our availability. First 2,000 people signed up will get their copies. And if you're listening going, wait, did I miss it? If you're listening to this the day it comes out, which is March 18th, 2025, you have until 11:59 p.m. We will go ahead and freeze everything at 11:59 p.m. and then we'll start stuffing envelopes as soon as we can. It's going to take us a while to get them all out because there's well over 1,000 people, and we're going to hand stuff all these envelopes, which will be fun. Also, if you're in the northern New Jersey area and you want to help us stuff envelopes, we will not say no. So get in touch. Anyway, this week's episode, I don't know, man. I sit here and I go, this show feels like it's on another hot streak to me. And then I sit here, I go, I think the show's been on a 9-year-long hot streak. Who am I kidding? I love this show. I read recently, someone described it online. Someone was saying, hey, I saw it, I think on Reddit, someone sent me a link that there were people going, Conan O'Brien now does episodes of his podcast where he talks to regular people. And there was someone online going like, I like these. I wish there were more of these. And someone jumped in and was like, you need to know about Beautiful Anonymous. It sets the bar for conversations with average people. And they described it perfectly where they were like, the show can admittedly be a little hit or miss, but when it hits, it can leave your jaw on the floor, leave you crying, laughing. You never know. I'm really proud of that. And I have to say, all of the best work I've ever done in my career has been admittedly hit or miss. And there's a few things I want to say about that because it actually gets me excited to hear that. what I don't ever want this show to be, and this is true about all of my creative work, I don't want to land in some middle ground where it's okay all the time. I want to take big swings where there might be some weeks where it's not for you, but the weeks where it's for you might rewire your DNA, might sit in your guts for years, might be a thing that you quote to other people, might be a thing that you pass on to other people because you feel like it is such high value. I don't think that artists can get to that if you don't also have some clunkers along the way. I actually don't think it's possible. I think aiming for a safe and predictable middle ground is why most things are bad. It's why most things creatively are not great, because people are trying to figure out how to make it sort of palatable to the widest berth of people. I'd rather make something that once every handful of episodes, you might go, ooh, this one's not for me. But then the very next week, you might go, I cannot believe how much this applies to me and how much this is making me think. I'd rather have that. And is that part of why I've always existed at best in an underground space? And then every few years, you guys who have been following me for 9 years go, oh, he's flirting with mainstream success again. It didn't quite happen. Like, sure. Maybe that's part of why, but I don't know. It's what I believe in fundamentally, and I can't figure out how to just be smarter and make it more palatable. The other thing that I also am really aware of and really like is I also bet that for a show that is admittedly sometimes hit or miss, I bet that every episode there's some people going, this one didn't work for me, and other people going, this is my favorite one ever, and I love that. I bet if we did some sort of deep dive survey, even the people who think it's hit or miss would disagree on which one's hit and which one's miss. And I love that. And I thank everybody who has helped make that happen along the way. This one's going to be a hit, though, I think. You're going to hear from a caller who is at a very young age and has already been through so much. There's a few things you're going to hear about that I should give you a heads up on. Stories of loss, stories of a hard childhood, stories of situations that you might look at and view as neglectful, things that might be hard to hear, that if those have affected your life, you'll want to know about it ahead of time. You're also going to hear about how people who wind up in those situations might get sucked into what they would call a cult, and this caller does. Sadly, not our first caller who details what it was like to be a member of a cult. There's been at least 2 others that I can think of off the top of my head, and I think there might be more spread out over our near 500 episodes. This caller spent her college years in a situation where she never names the organization or the particular denomination that she was in, but lays out some aspects of it where you hear it and you go, yeah, that shouldn't be an aspect. That sounds like a pretty dangerous aspect of religion, especially for a young person, especially with some control mechanisms or some shaming mechanisms. It's wild, but we hear about it in depth. The caller lets us know what it was like to be in that situation and how she got out of that situation, where she's at now, and in a way that I find very, very fascinating too. When you guys listen, I think you'll agree. I don't know that I've ever heard of someone whose life was so deeply defined by membership of a cult, while also seeming like she was never 100% on the cult itself, which is a mix that I don't think I've ever heard before and is really, really fascinating. The content, I hate the word content, the extra stuff you get over at beautifulanonymous.com is also really good this week. The caller thinks about her place in the universe. Also, we have a discussion of food and how food and regional food spreads and defines experiences and places. That's very nerdy, that I love. We talk about one of my favorite New Jersey foods. We talk about a lot of great Southwestern food, and it's just really good. And on the topic of beautifulanonymous.com, please do just remember that you have until 11:59 p.m. on March 18th 2025 to sign up and get a copy of the magazine, which everybody's excited about, and I'm very flattered by that. Enjoy the call, everybody.
Thank you for calling Beautiful Anonymous. A beeping noise will indicate when you are on the show with the host.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, oh my goodness. How are you?
I'm not having a great day. My blood pressure's a little bit through the roof, but I'll chill out.
Oh man, I'm sorry. My blood pressure is through the roof after Andrea picked up.
Look at that. And this is the effect Andrea tends to have on people, if I'm being honest. It creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of nervousness.
Well, I've never called in before. Ever.
First timer.
Yeah.
There's people been trying for years.
It went through. Yeah, I've been listening for years, and like every week I'm like, man, like you should call, and I never do. And then I just had maintenance leave my place, and I looked at my phone, and I was like, hold on, I was like, I have the afternoon free, like let's just try it, and it went through.
Well, there's going to be people who are jealous and furious and mad.
Hey, I think it's fair. I've put in my fair share of listening to every single episode. So it's not like I just like jumped on the bandwagon.
That's awesome. So what did you want to talk about today?
I don't know. I was telling Andrea I wanted to at least start with how I heard of your podcast. So I was moving to college for my freshman year in 2017, and we took two cars. My parents took me, so I had my car and then my mom's car. My dad was driving my car, and we listened to the same Rush album for about 7 hours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I asked to switch cars, and I was riding with my mom, and she was listening to your podcast. And that's kind of what started it all off. And I went back and I re-listened to all the episodes that had been out before, and then just been kind of my weekly thing.
So you were just getting blasted with Canadian prog rock, said, I need a change of pace. And that pushed you over into a corner where now you and I are linked up.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Well.
And then my parents dropped me off to a hurricane like that same day. So I had plenty of time to sit there and listen to episodes.
What do you mean they drove you to a place where a hurricane was hitting and then they fled?
Yeah, we got there and we were standing in like a Sam's Club type of situation, trying to buy a TV and like all this stuff for a dorm, and all these people were standing there, like hundreds of people with empty baskets and just waiting to get clean water to put in their houses in case the hurricane hit. We had no idea. We were coming from a landlocked state, and we did not know about this hurricane whatsoever.
Well, I'm so glad everybody's safe, and the origin story of how you found the show, between the music and the wild lack of safety in terms of your weather situation there. I'm glad that you lived to talk to me today. Yeah, no, it was crazy. My parents, they like drove me a couple hours like the opposite direction of the hurricane and left me at a hotel I was there for like probably 2-ish weeks until the campus could reopen after the damage. And so, I mean, I didn't know a single person in the state, so I just sat there and listened to podcasts and watched TV, and yeah, got caught up from that point on. I love it. They probably thought we were like the stupidest people alive in Samsco buying some TVs, though. Wait, why is that? Because there was a hurricane coming, and we were just trying to buy a TV that could just get washed into the ocean. I bet you're not the only one that flipped out and bought a TV that day. Far from it. Maybe. That would be my guess. But yeah, and then I was telling Andrea, I got to school, and I joined a cult when I was in school, unintentionally. What do you mean you joined a cult unintentionally? How's that go down? So
Okay. I grew up pretty unconventional. My dad and stepmom, very unreligious, kind of doing their own thing, hanging out. I had a mom that was incarcerated, and then I had a grandma who took me to church every Sunday because she took care of me on the weekends. So I grew up like going to church and practicing it like on the weekends with my grandma, but it was never implemented in my other households. And then I got to school, and this group, I'm a pretty shy kid, and they were like, "Hey, like, you know, come to this party, like whatever. It's gonna be on the beach. We're gonna have food, whatever." I went, and it was like a Christian fellowship, and I started going to church 3-4 times a week, Bible study on the days I wasn't going to church, going on mission trips, and kind of locked into that for about 3 years, and it was the most bizarre 3 years of my life. And then I had to get out of it. But if you have any questions on to like stem out on this, just let me know.
I have many questions. I have a lot of questions, actually. So it sounds like this was a Christianity-based organization.
Uh-huh.
So what makes you refer to it as a cult as opposed to just being a church?
I think there's a difference between doing things out of the kindness of wanting to do those things and doing things to manipulate people or pull people in. And so when I first joined, it was really big on like, hey, like, you know, you're welcome. Anyone you know is welcome. That's kind of how it started off right off the bat. But then it slowly evolved into like, if I wouldn't go to an event, they'd show up at my dorm in like a locked building and be knocking at my door being like, why are you not answering? Or like, we wanted to come invite you again, even though you said no multiple times. And so it just it was just like that could be your only personality. Like if you were hanging out with somebody who wasn't in that group, it was frowned upon, or they'd question it over and over and over again until you either brought that person or you stopped hanging out with that person.
So there was an intensity to the recruitment, and then once they felt like they had recruited you, a level of control over making sure your relationship stayed within the group, it sounds like?
100%, yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I guess I should preface this. So the whole reason I moved to that school, I have an ex-boyfriend from high school who was a year ahead of me. And he had gone to that school, so I moved to that school. So he was in that group when I got to school. So he was already kind of established. And his first year back from school, he had given me a Bible fully annotated on how I could be a good wife to him one day.
Wait, how old were you when he gave you a fully annotated guide to being a good wife?
I was 17.
Yo, too young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way too young for the fully annotated wife guide.
Yeah, I thought it was a little iffy, but I knew he was pretty religious. He was much more religious than I was. So I was like, okay, well, like maybe he like just believes like he's being nice, like he really believes this. And then I was fully immersed in this. Like, the whole 4 years of school, I never partied, I never drank, didn't smoke, didn't do anything. And I was just, the 3 years, I was just fully devoted to it. And I came home from my first semester of college and my parents were like, we don't know who you are, basically. And that was like a really shitty thing to hear.
Yeah. But you...
Sorry, Sally.
That's okay. Sally would agree with that one. Now, it sounds to me like when your parents say that, do you react? Do you turn it over in your mind? What is this organization I've become a part of? Or do you go, man, my parents don't get it. I got to separate from them.
I think it was more of like separating, not fully. I still talk to them, but growing up, I didn't have a ton of friends because I was constantly living between 3 2, 3, or 4 different houses all the time. And so it made it hard to have friends or be in sports and stuff like that. And so to me, that was my first sense of like a real community and like having friends. And so I was like, oh, well, like I have all these great friends. They want to spend all this time with me. Like this could be a good thing. And so I stuck with it. And, we'd go on these like fun trips, but it was always like, there was always something kind of off about it that I knew in the back of my mind. Like, for example, my mom, she's bisexual, and she runs a whole nonprofit organization for LGBTQ. And when I would talk about her prior to her having this company and everything, it was like, oh, well, we need to pray for your mom. It was never just like accepting her as it was. And it was like, okay, well, like I love my mom and like I'm fine with how she is. So like, why am I praying that like she changes? So that was always like,
I'm not on their side on
weird.
this. Hearing, because you mentioned before that your mom was also incarcerated when you were a kid.
Yes.
So like an incarcerated bisexual woman who works in the nonprofit space is literally the target audience of Beautiful Anonymous. Let's be clear about that.
Right.
Like my people are previously incarcerated bisexual women who now work in the nonprofit sector. Literally, those are probably the only people I'm truly interested in hanging out with or hearing from at this stage of my life.
Right. Yeah, it was something. I'm almost 26, and she was gone a lot of my growing up years. And then we didn't talk for the last maybe 6 years. We just started talking about last year. So she missed that whole time I was in college. She had no idea about this cult and everything going on because she was away and we weren't talking.
Now, I just want to put a pin in it for later. Are you comfortable telling me what she was incarcerated for?
For identity fraud types of situations.
That's so, and you put it all together where you go, okay, so your mom, it sounds like, made some ill-advised choices, went down some rabbit holes in life that I'm sure she's not psyched about. Mom's also living as a member of a marginalized community, goes away, and you start to piece it together, go, yeah, that creates a need for stability, community, creates a vulnerability, creates a situation that can be preyed upon. And it sounds like you were preyed upon by this group as far as the recruitment goes. I'm wondering if there's, you're going on these trips. It is your sense of friendship. You needed it. Are there things you look back on? One of the things, especially, it's always so tough, right? What makes one religion a cult and what makes one religion a religion? It's a very hazy dividing line. And I don't know that there's a real answer. Controlling your relationships with your family, controlling your romantic relationships, having a guru who's viewed as someone with a supreme level of authority. There's certain red flags, but it's pretty amorphous. Are there things that happened within the course of the actual ceremonies that you look back and go, oh, that goes beyond what you'd see in a Christian church, but on most Sundays?
So if it was what was occurring on campus, it wasn't as elaborate, I guess, because anyone could just walk in. I mean, somebody could walk in and like have no idea what's going on in there. I mean, it's a whole university because they were allowed to like hold sessions like on campus in the big ballrooms. But what they would do is they would have different groups from the state or neighboring states, and they would do these big either like mission trips, or we'd all go to like one massive church, and we'd all either like sleep on air mattresses or sleep at different houses, and it was just a whole thing. And there'd be 1,000 people there, and that is when it was just a lot, because you have almost all of us are in our either between like 17, 18 and like, maybe 23, 24. We're all college students. And once you got there, they'd have one big message for the whole group, and then you'd go break out into these breakout sessions that you could sign up for. And those could be as small as like 20 people in a group to like 100 people in a group. And one of them, I mean, they were just circled up, and everybody was speaking in tongues. And I was sitting there, and I was like, I had never experienced that personally ever in my life. Not even like one person doing that. So I was like, what in the hell is happening? Like, it was just like, okay. And I was like, maybe like they're just more into their faith than I am. And like, I'm not being a good Christian, and like, I'm just not being it. But like, I would talk to myself all the time and be like, well, but like, I'm a good person and I do these things. So like, what am I doing that like isn't allowing me to do that?
Yeah.
And then that boyfriend that I had in college, that we had been dating through high school, he had basically went and told the pastor and his wife that we had premarital sex. And when he told them that, they came to me and they were like, you need to get baptized, you need to confess this, like everything. And my boyfriend had told me, like, if you don't do this, like, I can't move forward with being with you. And so my freshman year of school, I got up there in front of almost 1,000 people, and I had to get on a microphone and like confess my sin that to me, I didn't think was a sin, and I still don't think it is. And that's just kind of like, I think that was like basically the full initiation into it. And it was like, okay, like if I don't do this, like I don't keep a relationship or I don't keep these friendships. And I just went further and further in from there.
Did you date that guy for the entire time you were in college and in this group?
No, thankfully, no. I got into partway through my sophomore year, we had broken up, and he got in some trouble with the school and got kicked out of school. And the people in the group were like, like, it's really messed up that like you're not like staying with him and everything. And I was like, well, no, first off, he broke up with me. I didn't break up with him. I think he knew he was going down a bad path and was just I think he started realizing this stuff in that group as well and was trying to distance himself from that. And so we broke up, but it for a long time was just asking me like, why was I not with him, and ridiculing me for that. And I just felt like I was just constantly trying to like justify myself, like he doesn't want to be with me. We're not together. So why is it such a big deal?
That's wild that you stood up in front of 1,000 people and had to say, I've sinned, I've slept with this boy. And then the boy leaves, but that a lot of the people you're crossing paths with, like it fundamentally creates some vulnerability and almost like this sense that they have something on you that's really very icky to think about.
Yeah. And I tried to like still stay a part of the group and, make friends or still go to the activities and stuff. And then the boyfriend I'm currently with, he and I started dating, and he would come down to visit me at school. And he had gone to move me in one year. And typically this group would go around campus and help people move in. And I was so excited to be like, hey, like, here's this, I want y'all to meet this awesome person in my life, everything. And like half of them wouldn't even look at him or acknowledge him. And it's like, you don't even know a single thing. You don't even know his name. You didn't even know we were dating until you walked up here. And that for me was like my final straw. And I was like, I can't be a part of this whatsoever anymore if you're not going to have respect for somebody you don't even know.
Now, you say you hit your final straw moment. One thing that I know about cults is they don't make it easy to leave. Let's go ahead and pause Because in the middle of a discussion about cults, what you need to have is commercials. We'll be right back. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts who are ready to help you take your business to the next level. You don't want hiring people to be a huge drain on your time, on your budget. Upwork is a one-stop shop to find, hire, and pay top freelance talent. Saves you time, keeps costs in check, and it's all in one place. Businesses are out here scaling faster than ever. Use Upwork to tap into a diverse pool of skilled freelancers across various industries. With more than 2 decades of experience, with a simple and ambitious goal, Upwork is out here pioneering a better way of working. Companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in the way they staff key projects and initiatives by accessing a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web development, AI, design, admin support, marketing, and more. There's no cost to join Upwork. Posting a job is very easy. You can register, browse profiles, get help drafting a job post, book a consultation, connect with freelancers that get you, and you can easily hire them to take your business to the next level. Upwork makes the process easy, simple, more affordable, with very low industry fees. Post a job today, hire tomorrow with Upwork. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com. I have never been a great sleeper. My mind's a little too restless. My physical demands are a little too specific, and sleep is not easy. But guess what? Sometimes you just need to change your sleep. And you hear about this. You hear all these strategies, right? Set a firm bedtime. Maybe don't use the phone right before bed. Don't let your pets or your kids in your bed, right? Like all this stuff might have results. Here's one thing that's so simple, though, that will really change the way you sleep. Upgrade to Boll & Branch's 100% organic cotton sheets. All the Boll & Branch products are high-level stuff. You will fall asleep faster with a luxurious softness that puts you in instant relaxation mode. I'm telling you, Boll & Branch. We're talking breathable comfort. We're talking sheets that get softer with every wash. Discover the difference with Boll & Branch. They have a 30-night guarantee. I have the Boll & Branch waffle blanket. It's been an absolute game changer for me. I sleep hot. My wife does not. We have different temperature needs. This blanket somehow accommodates both of us, which also you realize that means that we don't have one of us pulling more of the blanket onto us and one of us pushing it away, and that push and pull that wakes you up. I have my parents staying with me right now for a few days. So we changed the sheets and they're sleeping in my bed. And when I tell you I'm sleeping in the guest room with Hallie, and I sit here and I go, I am so jealous of my own mom and dad that they got that Boll & Branch waffle blanket. I wish that I switched that waffle blanket to the guest room, which I know that's so petty and selfish. I should want my parents to have the luxurious Boll & Branch sleep experience that I get to have with that blanket. I don't care. Call me whatever you need to call me. That's my blanket, and I miss it. That blanket's the best. You've never heard me be petty towards Sally like that. Never. Let alone Big Ken. Boll & Branch products are made different, so you can sleep better at night. Woven with the finest 100% organic cotton on earth, crafted by artisans who earn the pay and respect they deserve. The signature hemmed sheets. There's designs and colors for every bedroom style and mattress size. These all-season sheets have a breathable, unmatched softness to start, and they get softer with every single wash. That 30-night worry-free guarantee I mentioned, go ahead, try Boll & Branch sheets for an entire month. Seriously, you can wash, style, feel the difference for yourself risk-free. And if they don't change the way you sleep in the way we're talking about right now, send them back. Get a full refund. Now's your chance to change the way you sleep with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/beautiful. That's Boll & Branch. BOLLANDBRANCH.com/beautiful. Save 15%. Exclusions apply. See site for details. Thanks to all of our advertisers. Now let's get back into the phone call. Now, you say you hit your final straw moment one thing that I know about cults is they don't make it easy to leave.
Yeah. There was definitely so there would be group leaders and they would reach out and still invite me to things or come to my dorm. But I think they knew that I had like certain things on them that could have gotten them in school or in trouble with the school. And so I think for me, thankfully, it was kind of like, okay, like I think they backed off more with that. Because there's like some bad things that was going on. And I mean, in the news now, they're banned from most of the schools out in this state.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So they make colleges as their bread and butter. School campuses is where they choose to go and establish themselves, and they've been banned. That's how you know, because I bet there are other people listening going, speaking in tongues, big 1,000-person ceremonies. Is this different than what happens at an evangelical megachurch? And there's some people who might argue that those are cults. I'm not getting into that. I've never have an opinion. But when you start hearing like, oh no, you're getting banned from college campuses, you start to go, that takes a lot. That takes a lot. As a religious organization, that takes a lot.
This group is all over the entire U.S. and they have missionaries all over the world. I mean, there's people who, like my previous group leader, they're in a third world country now, living out there. Mm. And they would pose themselves as going to like third world countries as English speakers, but then they'd go and really be trying to teach them the word. And so it was really weird ways they would find of getting into things. And then if anything ever happened, as far like for me, like I've always struggled with my mental health. And with them, it was a real big thing of like, you don't take medicine, like you don't need to go to therapy, like you just need to go to church. And there'd be people who were struggling. You know, I remember there was one time this girl had called and was asking for help. And instead, I said that we needed to call. I thought it was serious enough to call 911. And they were like, no, it's fine. And we went to her house and they had me go in her room and take all the alcohol out of her room. And then she had razor blades out and they had me take those. And then they like stayed with her until she was calmed down. And that was it. Nobody was involved. No campus security was nothing. And I was like, this is somebody who's like seriously struggling right now and needs help and is asking for help. And you're like actively denying that to that person. And if they feel safe enough to go to you to ask for help and you're telling them no, like that's screwed up.
It does sound to me, I'm very fascinated to know why you stayed in it for 4 years. Cause it sounds like with that story you just told me of like, hey, this is, we need to find help for this person right now. Sounds like you knew when you were up there going, I don't actually feel bad about having premarital sex. It was a choice I made, and you're apologizing for 1,000 people. You mentioned that when they wanted to pray for your mom, your instinct was, I don't think my mom's a sinner because of who she gets in bed with. It sounds like there were many speed bumps along the way where you were going, I don't feel great about this. So I'm wondering how it lasted your entire college experience.
I mean, it didn't last my senior one at all. So I guess it was like 2.5 because COVID happened during when I was in school. So my senior year, I really wasn't on campus at all. It was just those remote classes. So that was like my saving grace to get away from everybody. But I don't know. I think my family just has a lot of issues with my mom and always has, and I understand it. I understand that they want to keep me safe. I understand that they want to keep themselves safe and why they would have those guards. But I felt like my whole life growing up, it was just constantly like them talking about how she messed up. And so for me, I was always like, well, I don't want to mess up like her because I don't want to be talked about like that. Mm-hmm. And when I joined this group, that side of the family was like, oh, she's doing these great things and going on these mission trips and helping so many people and everything like that. Because I love people. I love going and helping people. But in that way, it just wasn't right. But I think for me in that time frame, it was just like, okay, like they think I'm doing really good. They think I'm doing these good things. Like they would never think I'm going to be like my mom. And so in that time frame of my life, it did make sense. Now looking on it now, no, definitely not. I should have gotten out of it much sooner.
I bet there are other people who go, COVID was awful. It was a global disaster. Many, many, many people died to a degree that I think we as a society still haven't really reconciled with how strange and dark that era was. I was just reading something about people are starting to wonder how come we haven't seen like albums or movies or TV shows that are reconciling the COVID experience. And some people are going, because we're still not ready to. It was darker than any of us wanted to admit. But that being said, I bet you're not the only person out there going, but you know what? If you're caught up in a situation that you need distance from, COVID did give me the breathing room to have that distance and think about if I wanted to be a part of this thing I'd been caught up in. And I have to imagine, based on how you've talked about it today, that you feel better about your life outside of this rather than those years you were caught up in it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely look back and I'm like, okay, like there were fun times. But I also look at it as like, okay, it sucks looking at it and being like, I spent all those years there and I don't have any friends from school. Because a lot of people always, like, for like my dad or my stepmom or whoever, they always talk about like, oh, my friends from college, and they're still friends with them today.
Yeah. And
I wish I had that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, like I also don't. But I mean, when I look on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, and I see people who I did go to school with that were in that group, so many of them aren't. So many of them aren't in that group anymore. They're living lives. They're having kids without being married, which was the end of the world for me, apparently, but then it's okay for them to do it. And I'm not saying I don't want them to have their families. I'm glad they have their families. I'm glad that they're not in that anymore. But I look at it and it's like, okay, like you ridiculed me and then you're doing that. Or, I felt so bad. This one girl, she had heard us pray about my mom. She was there praying with us about like getting my mom saved. And now, I mean, she's married and she has an amazing wife. And I see all that. And it's like, I feel terrible for how she probably felt sitting in that room praying with us that my mom wouldn't be gay. And then she was there the whole time. Like, I feel terrible that she lived through that or had to go through that. And I feel terrible for all of us, but it genuinely seems like 99% of the people who I was in that group with aren't in it anymore. And I really think that was our saving grace, was getting away and being forced to be away from each other.
Have you thought about trying to connect with any of those people?
There are some of them I have reached out to. There are some I wish I would. Sometimes I don't want to like create a rift in their life because I know the experience is hard for me and I don't know how hard it was for them. And it's like, I don't want to like disrupt that or like bring that up again for them, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
And so it's not that I don't care. It's just, it's such a touchy subject. Like, I mean, even my family, they don't I don't think they know how to ask about it or like what happened. Like, I think they know like broad things, but it's just never talked about. It's just kind of like, oh, that happened. All right, move on. I think it's just too taboo or too fresh. I don't know.
It is fresh. It's you speak of it as this thing from your past that you have all this distance from, which I think is reflective of how intense it must have been, because it sounds like you mentioned you're 26, and when you do the math, I sit here in my head, I go, oh, you've now been out of it as long as you were in it, just about. But that's not that much distance when you really think about it. It was about 4 years you were in it, and it seems like you're probably coming up or just about past 4 years since you left. Maybe longer if your senior year wasn't really as much of a factor, but it wasn't all that long ago.
Yeah, it feels long sometimes when I think on it, but at the other times it's like it feels like it was like a week ago. It's just so much change. So much has changed since I've gotten out of school, and it's just I've created my own life for myself, and I've tried my best to move forward with it and just be helpful to people in different ways than being in that group.
And moving forward, living your life now, who are you at 26? What are you into these days?
I live with my boyfriend. We have a great little zoo of animals, and they're all pretty special to us because we don't have any kids yet. Spend a lot of time with them. We have a cat we adopted from China, and she's our little buddy. And spend tons of times with them. I still don't have a ton of friends out here. My boyfriend is my best friend, and then he has a bunch of siblings, and we hang out with them. And I work a lot so that hopefully one day we can buy a house and have a backyard for the dog. I figure it's better to work now and save money so that when we do have kids, that's not as much of a stress or a factor.
What kind of work are you doing?
I work in car sales as my full-time job. That's okay. It's not the most fulfilling job, but it pays the bills, that's for sure. And then I help with my mom's nonprofit when I have time.
It is. I'm going to say something that I think might be a bummer, but I say it fully in support, where you sit here and I go, oh, to hear you start off by going, so I was in a cult for a while and I got out, and then you describe it and I go, oh yeah, there are people who can debate these things, but this sounds absolutely like a cult. And then you talk about getting out, and I find myself so happy for you, but it's one of the many moments where we realize you have these things that happen in life and then they're done. And a lot of times when you tell a story, it's like, oh, cool. And that's where the caller made it out. She's away from them now and presumably happier and healthier and safer. And that's true, it sounds like. And I'm happy for you. But also hearing you say, like, I don't really have friends from college. My boyfriend's great, but we have a lot of animals and I connect with them, and my boyfriend's siblings are the people we hang out with, and I'm selling cars and it's not that fulfilling. You sit here and you go, this is the type of, it sounds like a very happy life. Don't get me wrong. But it also sounds like a life that if you have to walk away from everyone who is a part of your college experience, you go, oh yeah, you wind up a little lost. You wind up a little lonely. You wind up a little more isolated than you'd expect a 26-year-old to be. And that feels like long-term cost that I can't help but connect some dots and go, oh, right. I think about my friends from college. Like, I don't have many I've stayed in touch with through my 40s, but the ones I have, I text them every day. They're the people I text every day. sit there, I go, oh, right, that's a deficit to enter your post-college adulthood and go, I have to totally hit the reset button and walk away from that. You go, oh, right. You're supposed to build a social network. You're supposed to build relationships that are a bond that lasts, many people's cases, forever. And you kind of had to start over in your mid-20s to build that support network.
Yeah, it's been different for sure. I don't want to say I'm unhappy. I love my life. I love my apartment. I love the pets. I love my boyfriend. But, I wish I had a more fulfilling job. But at the same time, I try and give myself some grace with it because, I got out of school. I busted my butt for months working as much as I could so I could save money to move back here and get an apartment and have everything that I have. And, like for example, I took $200 and I went to the thrift store and I bought as much stuff as I could and I flipped it and made like $3,500 off of everything I thrifted. And that's how I bought everything for this apartment.
Yeah.
And I've just found ways of doing it and like getting myself to having what I want and what I need. And I'm at this point now where it's like, okay, I have everything I could want in an apartment. I have everything I could want materialistically, I guess, is like the best way to put it. And when I finished school, I did that, I busted my butt for that 6 months to a year, came out here, started working. My grandparents both passed away in the last 2 years. And so it was just like, they raised me for the most part.
Sorry.
And so just going through all that, it's a lot. It's just mentally, it was a lot. I had never had somebody die before that was close to me. So I had a really hard time with that. And I think in the past couple months, I've finally gotten to this point where life just kind of feels normal for once in my life. It just feels like, okay, like this is what it should be. It's not chaotic. It's not a disaster every single day. It's just like, I'm okay. And of course I have days that I feel like lonely or I wish I had friends, but it's not like all the time because I know it'll happen. I'm not worried about it never happening.
Hearing you say feels like I've pushed through all this stuff. A lot of chaos when you were young, clearly looking for some infrastructure and some sense of community, but winding up in a place where that went way overboard and was exploited. And now to have it swing back and hear you say, I actually feel like my life is normal. I think I speak for a lot of the people listening to go, just hearing you say that, I feel a weight coming off my shoulders. I feel so good hearing you say that. And I can't imagine how you feel.
Yeah. I feel like my life is just always it just always has felt like something since day one of my life. It's just always been something. And so genuinely just having like this safe space for me to be in, and just, I go to my job and come home and do my thing. Like, I mean, I have hobbies, I have my passions, and that takes my time too. But I'm just kind of at this place where it's like, I'm okay not having a ton of friends. Like, I'm okay with how life is. It's a good feeling.
I also feel like you probably needed to get to that point of, I have a roof over my head. I have a support network.
Mm-hmm.
My boyfriend and I live together and his family accepts me. And that gives me a sense of family that it sounds like you didn't grow up with the most stability, or at the very least, you grew up with a lot of questions. It's a starting point.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine that as your guard is able to come down more, that friend network is going to be one of the next thing that just fills out over time. I have to imagine, because you're too cool to talk to. And I'm not blowing smoke here. I'm just like, oh, you're cool to talk to. So if you're looking to start it, but it is that, right? And you're only 20, 26 is so young, but 26 is old enough that it starts to feel like, I got to start making friends now? What are you talking about? We make friends. No, you make friends when you're like 8. And then you make friends again in college. Right? You have these phases where you make friends. I'm going to make adult friends? What am I going to join one of these kickball leagues? Join one of these grown-up kickball leagues where people go out and have a drink afterwards? Maybe. You maybe do that or something. But it's daunting. But I bet if that's something that you want, I bet it's on its way. Because when you don't have stability, that's the main concern. And it sounds like you've just gotten to a place where you're like, hell yeah. I got a job I'm not in love with, but it's paying the bills. I got a house where I was able to hit up that thrift store and I got it looking how I want. I got animals I love. I got a boyfriend. We got each other's backs. Bring on the friends. I bet it's right around the corner if that's something that you're looking for. And right there, at a tender moment of connection about building one's social network after many years spent without one, that led to long-term support. What we have are ads with great promo codes. Hi, everybody. I am very, very happy to tell you about Delete Me, which is a service that I use personally that has helped me and my family immeasurably. Delete Me does all the hard work of getting you and your family's personal information off of these very dangerous data broker websites. It's not just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal info that you don't want on the internet. And if you start looking into it, there's a ton of info out there. Every address you've ever lived at, addresses that your relatives live at. If there's someone with bad intentions, whether it's scammers, whether it's people infringing on you and your family's privacy, that info is not something you want them to be able to just pay for and have. So a service like Delete Me is really vital. And I've got to tell you, I've lived very publicly for many years. I've created work that has a real cult following. And very sadly at times, that's also put me in a position where I feel like I was maybe way too public early in my career. And now I have a child. I have a spouse, I have a home, I have a lot of things that I feel a need for privacy with, and Delete Me allows me to take a deep breath, feel like my family's a little bit safer because they make it that much harder to infringe on that privacy. I don't know how to make it more basic than that, but I can tell you there are some situations I've been in where I've personally been scared, and one of the things that has helped me be less scared is the fact that Delete Me has my back. I mean that so sincerely. So take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/beautiful and use promo code beautiful at checkout. The only way to get 20% off, go to joindeleteme.com/beautiful. Enter the code beautiful at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/beautiful. Code beautiful. Thanks again to everybody who sponsors the show. Now let's finish off the phone call. Bring on the friends. I bet it's right around the corner if that's something that you're looking for.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's there. And I know my stepmom's going to listen to this because she listens every week, and I don't want to discredit her and my dad. I think they were amazing parents, and I know they did what they could. But it was just a lot. It was a lot going between their house and my grandparents' house and my aunt's house. And then when my mom was around, going to her house, it was a lot of just constant moving around. Not that I was being put in like terrible situations. It was just, I'm in this place where it's like, okay, like I know I come home to the same place every single day and I don't have to worry about that. And I'm so excited for the next chapter of life.
I think it's awesome. And I'm sure, your stepmom, much love to the stepmoms of this world. My guess is that you're about to get a text or a call from your stepmom that's like, we were fighting so hard for you and we weren't sure what to do either. And you're going to be able to go, I know. Like, I'm sure that's on its way. Much love to the stepmom. But look, it sounds like the ball bounced in some directions when you were real young, where it created a situation that, I got to tell you, as someone who's a dad, when you're having your kid, all those parenting classes, what they tell you over and over again, kids want predictability. Kids want situations where they can predict the end game. And it sounds like even your dad and stepmom, even your grandparents who are fighting so hard, I bet even your mom can look back and go, we did not figure out how to get you in a situation where there was a level of predictability you could rely on. Our bad. We tried. I'm sure that conversation's coming if your stepmom's listening, but I'm glad to hear that you were strong enough to wind up in some situations that sound admittedly kind of weird, but you got yourself out of there. Now you're doing better. I'm also very impressed to hear you say that, you indicated prior that you were raised in an environment where there was a lot of anger towards your mom, and that as a kid, you were aware of that anger, that some of the other adults were airing that out in a way that you knew about it. That is so tough for you as a kid. But to hear now that outside of dealing cars, you also put in some hours at your mom's nonprofit, that lets me know that your mom has grown in a lot of ways. It lets me know that some healing has happened. And I have to imagine that feels good for you, because it feels good for me to hear about.
Yeah. I hope that this time with her being out, I hope she does the right thing. I think, unfortunately, this last time she was away, I didn't talk to her that whole time. And in the grandparents that passed away, those were her parents, and so she didn't get to say goodbye. And as terrible as that obviously is, I think she finally got to a point of like, okay, like, this is my last chance. Like, I got to figure it out. And she's just been making really good moves with that. And I've been trying to rekindle that relationship. And I know my dad's not too psyched about it. And that kind of drove a wedge between us. But, I've been talking to him more and more. I was just home a couple weeks ago and we had good talks. And I think it's just I know it's coming out of a place of love and protection. And I know I would probably do the same thing if it was my kid.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been an evolution of many different things, but getting there. Life is getting there.
26 is also that it's an age where you're still allowed to go, yeah, my dad's just looking out for his kid and I get why he's not psyched. You're young enough that you can still accept that and see the value in it, but you're also old enough to be able to gently remind your dad, I'm a grown up now. I figured out how to find my own footing. I'm going to make my choices. And no matter what happens, I'm going to be able to handle it. You can trust that. I feel like 26 is around the age where actually you start to really feel that self-actualized. And I bet where your folks can maybe take a deep breath and start to believe you too.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, being able to open the door and just have that conversation with him definitely has been a big thing too. So it's getting there. That's for sure.
I'm glad you're okay.
But
there's a lot of it's fun to talk to you when you sound mostly sort of like, yeah, I had an overwhelming bunch of years there in this cult. And some of that is because I needed a sense of stability after a childhood that was kind of a whirlwind. But to hear you be able to talk about it today from a perspective where you mostly have this vibe that you're like, yeah, things were real fucking confusing for a while, but I think I'm good. Like, that's kind of the vibe. And that's a joy to hear. I feel like if you and I spoke a couple of years ago, you would have still been in the thick of a lot of confusion. And to hear you now be like,
I might have broken out into tongues on the phone. I don't know. We don't know.
So you got to the point where, because, there's a lot of moments you've talked about where you were the bystander going, this doesn't feel right. But if you're there for years, you also get sucked into it, huh?
Yeah, no, I never spoke in tongues.
You never did. So you were just kind of hanging out while everybody was speaking in tongues.
Yeah.
And all those years in, you were like, I'm not speaking in the tongues.
I remember I wanted to get a tattoo so bad, and they're like, oh, it's so sinful. And I got one, but I got a Bible verse with it, as if that was going to smooth it over a little better. And I look at that sometimes, I'm like, oh my God, why did I do that? But it's okay. It's a good story.
Is it like a real badass Bible verse?
It's Mark 4:27. It's the parable of the sower, where they grow the mustard seed, and regardless if it's in good terrain or bad terrain or growing through thorns, it'll still grow.
Hey, if you're gonna want a tattoo, but due to your ties into a pretty intense religious group that's trying to control you, get a Bible tattoo to try to appease them to not be that mad. You could do a lot worse than that. That's pretty cool.
I'm saying. Thank you.
Do you have more tattoos now?
Oh, yeah. I have like 6 other ones.
I bet the second you left, you were like, I'm going to get Calvin pissing on something. I'm just going to get a big Tommy gun. What tattoos do we have now to help balance out the Bible verse tattoo?
I have a serotonin symbol that's filled in with honeycomb and flowers.
Oh, yeah. You're cool as hell.
On my arm. Yeah, I have a degree in psychology, so I got it for that. And then I have the mountains on my shoulder. I have a seashell and like a little sandpiper.
I love this image that the whole time you were kind of like, I don't know. I kind of want to, I'm like 19. I kind of want to screw my boyfriend. I don't want to, I think my mom's actually pretty cool. Yeah, speaking of tongue things, I don't know about all this. Like, it sounds like the whole time. I do wonder, did you ever get caught up in recruiting others?
Honest answer, yes, unfortunately.
That's got to stick in your brain a little bit, huh?
I remember, well, yes. Now, do I think they stuck with it? No, from what I can see.
So you've checked.
But I have checked. And there was this one moment where I should have brought this up earlier. Do you mind if we go back to this situation real quick?
Go for it. We got 10 minutes left.
Okay. So we have plenty of time for this story. So I went on this one mission trip, and you have to pay to go on these mission trips, by the way, like hundreds of dollars. And I had driven my car and had a load of people, and I paid for all I had to do all that. Okay. So I already wasn't the most thrilled person in the world. And they were like, we're going to do this flash mob in front of a very well-known place in this state, like a very big tourist attraction. And so there's probably like 150 of us. And for that whole week, we learned choreography to a dance. And then we did this flash mob, and I kept saying I didn't want to do it. And I was just getting ridiculed, like, why won't you do it? Number one, I don't like being in groups of people. It wasn't even to do with the religious part of it. I just didn't want to do it. I did do it. But when we were done, it was like, as soon as the flash mob stops, they're like, you're going to run out and you're going to find 10 different people to pray with and tell them about us.
You got to do that?
And so that's portraying to, yes. And so that's portraying to all these people who are tourists from all over the world, like, oh, these kids are super psyched about this. And you know what I mean? Like, they knew what they were doing.
I got to tell you, if there's 2 things in life I would be very wary to participate in, it's one is intense manipulative religion. Number two is a flash mob. I would be very nervous and wary participating in either of those things. Two of my least favorite things, let alone the intense manipulative religious group executing the flash mob and then trying to make me the people person of the flash mob. That's like my actual, like my heart is actually racing.
Yeah, it was something. And like they like posted the live stream on Facebook and everything. I remember my family being like, what's going on? My dad was like, what's going on here? I was like, oh, you know, like we were just doing the dancing. He's like, but what was the dance for?
Oh no. Oh no. If anything, be honest with me. Was there ever a part of you that was like, you guys, you had me until you forced me to do the flash mob? The flash mob is ultimately where I realized that I was not going to last much longer in this organization.
That was the line. No, unfortunately, that wasn't the line.
You guys want to speak in tongues? I'll tolerate it. You guys want to judge my mother? I'll clock it, but we can keep going. You want me to have to publicly apologize for being a teenager who has had sex in front of 1,000 people? I will experience that shame and it will mess with my head, but I'll stick with it. You make me do a flash mob and I am fucking out of here.
I mean, I think there was always that side of me that was still like listening to rap music and just like being psyched about that and like building Legos and like doing stuff that they weren't doing. So it's fine. I think
Legos and rap music were your rebellion. Wait, why were they anti-Lego?
I don't know. We wouldn't like, I don't know if they were anti-Lego, but they just
Legos
thought
are
I
sinful?
was weird for like having them.
What rap music were you, when you were going home at night, everybody's speaking in tongues, you're kind of off to the side, you get in your car by yourself. What rap music are you putting on as you drive home and you're like, I don't know about this shit? What's the rap music that helps bring you back to a neutral place?
Grounding myself.
Yeah.
I was listening, I mean, very, very just normal, like G-Eazy or Mac Miller. Nothing crazy. But like, I know I was definitely getting into the car after leaving service and putting that on and just kind of being like, all right, this is my normal for right now.
That's very funny. That's very funny. Mac Miller, R.I.P. But I don't know much about G-Eazy, but I hope that G-Eazy hears this and knows that his music was the rap music that kept you from totally immersing yourself in what sounds like it could have been. What sounds like it was already very concerning, but it could have been worse. Could have gotten darker, for sure. And G-Eazy's a part of why it didn't.
If you look up a picture of him, you're going to be like, this fucking dude.
I'm looking at him right now. His Wikipedia entry, he's got, he looks like a rapper with earrings. I'm not going to judge how anybody else looks. Look, if G-Eazy looks at a picture of me, he'll have more to make fun of than I could make fun of about a picture of G-Eazy. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to make it through college, Guess. I was just trying to make it through.
Listen, I had a similar experience with college, but I didn't dive into religion as part of it. I dove into alcohol and real, real self-loathing. But hey, we each got our own stuff.
Fair enough. I mean, we're both here, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
We're making it.
We are.
Yeah, I think I was always just so afraid of addiction with my mom's issues with that I tried to stay clear of it as much as I possibly could because I was always so nervous about it. So, which isn't a bad thing to be nervous about, I guess.
I am glad that it sounds like, got to the other side of it where we can laugh a little bit about it today. And I'm really, really glad to hear that you got there.
Yeah. Thank you.
You feeling optimistic about the future or no?
I am 100%. I'm just trying to get to a place where financially I can make some career changes and just move forward from there. I know that I think the most fulfilling thing I can do is help other people, and I'd love to have a job in the social work field, but it's just getting to that point. And I think once I'm there, it's going to be a good thing.
You're going to be a very empathetic social worker, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think everybody deserves kindness, no matter what. It's everybody's first time living. Everything should be given with grace to an extent. So
I don't get the sense people are going to be able to shock you, and I don't get the sense that you're going to judge people.
Yeah, I mean, I try my best not to. I try my best for sure. I mean, I know I had a very unconventional life, and it's probably easy for people to judge it, and I know they do, and you know, I don't deserve that. It wasn't fair to me. It wasn't fair to my family. It wasn't fair to a lot of people. So why would I do that to other people, you know?
Yeah.
We're all humans at the end of the day.
We got many social workers that listen to the show, and I bet they're very psyched to welcome you to the ranks.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the next goal for sure, now that life is sort of normal.
Well, our time's about to run out. Are you into hanging out a little bit behind a paywall and answering some more questions about your life, which I'm actually very excited about with you, because it's who knows which era of life they might throw you into the headspace of, and you've got a few to choose from that are quite fascinating.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm definitely down.
All right. Well, let's say goodbye to everybody who's been listening to the show for free. If anybody wants more with this caller and all of our callers, beautifulanonymous.com. We're doing good stuff over there. Join up. Be a part of it.
All right. Thanks, Geth.
Caller, thank you so much for sharing the details of your very specific and unique college experience, the way you made it out, and also so much more over at beautifulanonymous.com. Thank you to the High Priestess Andrea Quinn for producing the show. Thank you to Shell Shag for our theme music. If you want to know about me, including upcoming editions of that show and my performance in Honolulu, Hawaii in April, punchup.live/Chris Gethard for tickets. We have a voicemail line. It's 973-306-4676. We're on Instagram at Beautiful Anonymous Pod. We're also now on TikTok. We have a Facebook group at Beautiful Anonymous, the community. Sign up, get the magazine, everybody. BeautifulAnonymous.com. This week on Beautiful Anonymous Plus, here's some of what you'll get from the 5 questions. The companion to the Zeppeli, which I don't know the ethnic roots of, the funnel cake, which might be as good or even better, but these are our versions of them. The Zeppeli and the funnel cake are the 2 fried dough staples I grew up with.
That's so weird. I grew up going to Point Pleasant every summer, and I'd never had that. I'll have to ask my dad about that.
Wait a second. You're just mentioning now that you've been to Point Pleasant a bunch of times?
My dad is from Mendham.
Your dad is from Mendham?
Yeah, they know all about Action Park and all that whole thing, yeah.
The level of restraint and grace you showed by not using this to butter me up thus far is remarkable. Don't forget to sign up for Beautiful Anonymous Plus at beautifulanonymous.com.